Guys, intro time.
Wait, which intro?
The wisdom check.
Oh, good.
Wait, no. I thought we were keeping the old intro. What's wrong with the old one? People like that one.
It was too long.
Yeah.
Too many fucking gifs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But can we keep the part where I yell more?
No.
But it's the intro to end all intros.
I got, like, what? 2 lines last time?
Do you want more lines, Tim?
Well, no, not really.
In a world without answers.
Yeah.
Wait, you want to start with that?
Here we go. Exactly like last time.
Wait, okay, so we're doing it the exact same way? Let's start with Smoky Bar.
No. It's a new season. We have to have a new intro.
More.
Not sure why we thought this would go any differently.
Oh, well. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check, where Jeff and Dustin welcome a guest every week to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. Welcome.
This is ridiculous. I'm starting the stream now.
Wait, where's my die at? Well, we can't start until I botch. And it's not an intro unless I'm botching.
You're on.
And we should be on right now, so there we go. Nice.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check. It's Monday night. We are here just a little later than our usual start time, but we have a very special guest with us tonight. It is D. Daniel Wagner. Daniel, tell everybody hi.
How you doing, guys?
All right.
Doing well.
So we had you on here tonight, obviously, because you've done a fair amount of work with Dungeons and Dragons over the years, and with your own work that's associated with it. We definitely want to get into discussing your history as a third party, I guess, author. Is that the right word? Or you got third party content that you created, which is such a normal thing nowadays with 5th Ed, with the DMs Guild and everything. But you were back in like the kind of trailblazing days of this sort of thing. So we definitely want to talk about how it went from what you experienced to what we see today. So we're definitely glad to have you on the show finally.
Yeah, it's there's not too many of the grognards left.
Feel like a dying breed, do you?
Exactly. It's been dead. It's dying breed. Yeah.
All right. So why don't we talk a little about how you got into the hobby? So take us back and let us know what it was like in those things.
When I was young, my dad and I, we would play chess and stuff, and then he bought me a game of Stratego. I go to work with him sometimes, and we play with the guys there at work, Stratego, and other games like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I discovered the Avalon Hill War Games and Diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
And in high school, I had a tactician society rather than the chess club, and we played some games there at high school. And then I started playing games every night at a guy named Tom's house, Hawthorne.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that. And Tom bought, and we were playing miniatures war games, Diplomacy, big board games, Avalon Hill War Games, all that stuff. And then Tom answered an advertisement and bought this little ad for this little box thing that came, this 3 volumes of stuff called Dungeons and Dragons. And, well, there we go. History.
Man, that must have been something else to be there when the game first came online. Because, I mean, we talked about it in other episodes about how, Dungeons and Dragons and games in that kind of styling were kind of a radical departure from other games we're used to. And all the games you're describing, the board games or chess, all those things are adversarial by nature. Whereas this may be the first time that we have a game system that's not built around that concept. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Was that obvious when it came out, or was that something that just kind of revealed itself later?
It was good. We kind of did it adversarial a bit, DM versus players a little to start with, because we're just in that mode. They did a little bit of role playing in some of the games.
Mm-hmm.
There was a jousting game we used to play where at the back in the appendix it said, write up a background for your character and get a coat of arms for them.
Oh,
It
cool.
had no effect on actual gameplay.
Mhm.
And
Right.
we'd have like a background for our general Napoleonic games. I remember I was Inspector General of Artillery in the Russian Army or something. But this isn't really role playing. This is adding a little role playing element to
Mhm.
a war game. Just,
Because there weren't like established worlds at that point. So you were playing in like historical reenactments with D&D rules? Is that what you were essentially doing?
no, we were playing with. I was playing in the historical items before we got into D&D.
Okay.
Then we got
With the wargaming.
Mhm.
and I started from wargaming to Dungeons and Dragons. I believe I have the first dungeon on the West Coast. I still have it. I was running my players third on Friday night. Yeah, maybe not, but I think I did because we got one of the very first copies, and I did a dungeon like that night. So, quite possibly the first dungeon on the West Coast.
Wow.
Then we just hooked into that game. We just started playing and playing and playing. We're playing like 3 days a week, starting Friday, all day Saturday, Sunday. It was just something so new, so great. And we just played the heck out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when you say you have the first dungeon, now doing wargaming, I assume there was a lot of modeling involved. Landscapes. Did you build the actual dungeon?
Oh, no, I just did it on, graph paper. Get some trees and hills and stuff for our war games,
Mhm.
and we put figures out,
Mhm.
They weren't like squares or anything too important. Things like, we need to know a range of fireball and stuff. But most of it was down the dungeon, so down the dungeon was all theater of the mind.
Okay.
Now,
Just with a map is all you had then, just the graph map.
And usually some lead figures out there for the characters so we knew the marching order. That's about
Right.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds a lot like even our start, in the really early days of our group was, same classic things. You had, your Coke can out on the table, and that was like representing the pillar over there. And then you had your random dice spilled around as something as an obstacle. But yeah, it's interesting. We have some people in the chat talking about how, it's interesting to see that wargaming came first. Whenever people are looking in retrospect at the hobby, and what it's kind of developed into over time, for a lot of the new players, I think that even the wargaming concept is kind of foreign, which is this kind of amazing, to see that level of abstraction occurring there. Like, how long do you think did it take for that to really evolve out?
Oh, D&D was like capturing lightning in a bottle. It just went bam, and very quickly we abandoned most wargaming. We just stopped wargaming pretty well.
Wow.
We started playing Boot Hill, and other games like that. Role playing just took over. We did still play some World War II 1200 scale naval miniature battles because we had all those expensive lead ships.
Right.
It really, role playing just took over.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, for D&D, we use little plastic dinosaurs, just like Gygax did. The Boule and the Rust Monster comes from. Some bag of Japanese dinosaurs that included two little weird things in it, and Gygax made up stats for these.
That's awesome. Just some random bag of toys that he picked up somewhere and became monsters.
But there's a little figure in there that looks like the Rust Monster, a little figure that looks like the Boule,
Huh.
and they just made it up to stand for it. Yeah.
That's amazing, because it's always amazing when you hear these stories about how some of this came into being, because you think like it was super like well thought out or whatever, but a lot of it was literally just picking up something and being inspired by it and just here's rules for it and just being done.
I mean, we were using figures from the medieval war games for our our characters. So 25 millimeter figures. That's what we're using. So
right on. So like
just
so those initial days, drawing in influences from different places. What would you say were your influences at that time? Was it more the Tolkien side? Was it more the Conan side? Was it something completely different from those things?
Tolkien mostly. Tolkien was the big thing, obviously. Fafhrd the Grey Mouser was big. We loved this book by Poul Anderson, The Broken Sword.
Okay.
That was big.
All right.
I almost got his name right, Poul Anderson. It's close, but I'm sure that if he was around, he'd say I was wrong.
Thank you for the follow there, Sam Burke.
So, we did a lot of fantasy literature. I would have to say Fafhrd the Grey Mouser was a big part of it. Conan, etc.
Yeah, because that seemed to be pretty heavy in the culture at the time, right? As an influence, because like everyone I've been talking to, that grew up around that era, that Conan seems to be the one. Like, and that kind of shocked me a little bit because when I look back at gaming, maybe it's just the bias of like the media that I followed, growing up, but like Tolkien was like the obvious, like, oh, that clearly is where this came from, and when you kind of dig back into it, you realize that's not the case for a lot of people.
I would say Tolkien was probably number one, but there were a lot of number twos and number threes. So we were a well-read group.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would imagine that was a consistent thing across the board there. Because, the convention scene, obviously, if you go to those, you start to run into a certain type of person, like so really well-read, interested in science, history, and obviously that's not your everyday person running around the streets. So, what was the gaming culture like then? Or was it easy to find other fellow players, or is it kind of like the Wild West of Discovery?
Well, I happened to run into some guys at high school, friends, and turned them on to the war games. They loved that. And then one of them found out about this, Friday night game at Tom's house. A friend of a friend, and then we all started gaming at Aero Hobbies, AERO Hobbies, in Santa Monica, owned by Gary Switzer, and all start gaming there. And so that's how you pick up more people, you start with your friends in high school, then you go to some guy's house. He's a little older, Tom, and he had other guys, and then we learn about Aero Hobbies, and I drove to Santa Monica every weekend to play games there.
That's awesome. And if I'm getting my history correct here, this is where a lot of the creation process happened, right? At this location?
Right. Probably Aero Hobbies was the crucible.
And, if you, from our earlier conversations we had with some other guests, they talked a lot about how it was just kind of like a constant like creation process. Like everyone was there coming up with rules on the fly, writing them down, coming up with systems, trying to figure out what's going to work for their group. And then, there was a bit of, sharing amongst your peers and that kind of stuff. So I guess this kind of gets us into the point now of talking about one of those early ones that you put together, which was the Thief class. So this is back in the day when we were talking about... is this Redbox days at this time, or?
No, this is right before Greyhawk.
Okay, yeah.
Redbox was the original 3-volume set, and then Greyhawk. This is before Greyhawk. So,
wow. So yeah, this is back when things were a little simpler. We only had 3 classes at that point then.
Magic User, Fighting Man, and Cleric. And that was it.
Magic User, Fighting Man, and Cleric. Is that what you said? I want to make sure. Wow.
That was it. The big 3. So what was the inspiration here for the Thief class?
Well, what we did is, we looked at the rules. We saw clerics couldn't cast spells to level 2. So we decided to start everyone at second level.
Okay.
Just wanted to play cleric, have to cast a spell, right? And we give everyone a first level henchman because some people wanted to go on the short solo games. So one guy named Andy, and we rolled. We rolled the dice, and you took them as you liked them. Now the goals are really cruddy. So you could re-roll, but you rolled them. You took them 3d6 in order. That was your class. Well, he got a pretty high intelligence and a very decent dex. Then he rolled his henchman, who also got a pretty good dex, but they both had rather low strengths. So he was going on a solo game in my dungeon, came upon a chest or door, I don't remember which one it was, and they couldn't open it. There was a die roll, a d6, and based on your strength, he could not open it. And he's going, well, this sucks. Well, my henchman's got a dex of 16. How about he tries to pick the lock with his dagger? So, okay, sure. Make a die roll. All right. Looks good. Sure, he picks the lock with his dagger. So, I immediately saw this was going to be like, who would want one of these, right? So I drew up a 3-level class based kind of on the cleric, but also on the wizard too, a little bit. All right. He had abilities like a wizard did. Like a wizard had spells. And he fought kind of like a cleric. He was a decent fighter, not as good as a fighting man. And I called him a thief. And his abilities were things like pick locks. So at first level, he had one ability. He picked from a list, pick locks. And he just did it. There's no die roll. He just did it.
Oh, okay.
And there's a third level ability to pick magic locks, right? So he couldn't pick magic locks yet, but he could pick locks. And then, find traps and then disarm simple traps. These are his abilities. And just enormously popular.
Oh, I believe it. That was my first character. Was a thief, so.
Desperately needed in those dungeons of those days.
Yep.
I mean, you can't just blunder through traps. Those devious Gygaxian traps. You can't just send a guy in and let him take the damage. It didn't work.
Well, I mean you could.
Traps where you went to the door and you went to this one room naked and all your gear went to another room. You can't just bowl through those. You were more clever, more devious. So, some people wanted to play characters of a thief, not just an NPC. So cool, I drew out the class 10 levels, and this became quite popular. People would draw their version of the Grey Mouser, and somewhere along the line, unbeknownst to me, Gary Switzer called Gary Gygax and told him about this class. And I believe sent him a copy of badly drawn scribbles. And Gygax was immediately taken by it. Published in a newsletter a class very much like mine. Then, for Greyhawk, changed around quite a bit and went to these percentage die rolls for skills.
Yes, which most of us are familiar with.
Yeah.
So instead of just doing the pick lock, you have to roll to see if you can pick lock. I think that was a downgrade, personally, of the class. And so then that was in Greyhawk. And so all I knew is that someone had stolen my thief class.
Wow, of all the things to have stolen,
the irony, the irony that comes with that, right? Like you got out thieved on your thief.
Man, that's wild.
There's no honor among thieves, right? So I didn't know who did it. I mean, we had other people playing, and people have been publishing things in Alarms and Excursion, although not the thief class. But I didn't know who did it or how it got to Gary Gygax. And so I went, oh, well, it happens.
Right.
And then we looked around. We said, well, we got all these monsters and other classes we've been doing. Or somebody else rips us off again. Let's publish it. And we sat down and we wrote up some more classes we hadn't ever used before, and a bunch of new monsters, and got 2 of the girls to illustrate it.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry typed it, and Hugh Singh edited. And I, at the time, the company I was working security for said, "Oh, use the copier all you want. There's a Xerox machine." Little do you know, I run over and use 300 copies of a 40-page book.
Yeah, well, no one ever assumes that many pages is going to get used when they say just use the copier, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Copy all you want.
Well, how thick was this booklet? Because, I mean, you're talking about 300 copies of the whole thing, right?
Right. Here's, I'm going to show
Oh, he's got it with him.
There's a manual. There it is.
Wow.
Wow.
And it is, I don't know, like 40 pages long. They don't even number the pages here.
So,
like that.
So he had access to a copier, but like, what was the, like, I can't imagine just picking up and being like, I'm going to publish this and I'm going to distribute it across, who knows where. I mean, what was that part of it like?
Well, we knew Steve Lucky, we just called Lucky, over at the War House in Long Beach.
Uh-huh.
Who was Gary Switzer's biggest supplier. And Gary was, of course, willing to put out some copies. So we ran 300 copies and sold them to Steve and Gary.
Wow.
And then, well, we sold 300 pretty quick. So we had enough money to actually go to a professional printer. And that's where you get the second edition. We added some illustrations, corrected some typos. And I think we printed well over 1,000 at a professional printer.
Wow.
So it was kind of a big deal back in those days.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, printing is expensive.
Now, when you say you sold a copy of this original print, what did it sell for at that time?
I'll show it to you right there. You ready?
Let's see. $3.
$3. $3.
Yep, $3.
Man.
This is back in the 70s, though, so $3 went a little further.
Now we know that.
So copies at $1.50 each is what we got made out of them.
Man.
Now, just out of,
1,000 copies.
whoa. Now, just out of curiosity, we know that if there's anything in TTRPGs, there's collectors.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any of these go for any astronomical prices since then?
Oh, yeah. The first edition sold on eBay for well over $600.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That is incredible.
Second edition usually is worth $100.
Man.
Still, that's impressive for something you were selling for $3 at the time. I mean, that's pretty good.
I never got the $3. I mean, I only got the $1.50.
Yeah.
Well,
I
right.
think we sold a few. We sold a few in person. We were guest of honors at DundraCon 3, I think it was, and we sold a few in person, autographed a few and stuff. But all the DundraCon could afford to give us was free memberships and a little table where you could sell the thing. They couldn't even give us a hotel room or gas money or anything.
Boy.
So
Yeah.
you know how string everything was.
It's amazing how far the convention scene has come, right? I mean, up till this year. This year, it's
Right.
unfortunately, it's a ghost town right now because of COVID. But prior to this year, like the conventions are just so huge now. You think of how they got started back then, like it's got to be so different.
Yeah. I think they planned on 300 people going to DundraCon 3, and I think 1,000 people showed up or something like
Wow.
that. Or maybe I get the numbers wrong. Maybe they planned on 100 and 300 showed up. But I know the hotel was overbooked. The hotel restaurant ran out of food.
So some things haven't changed. Some things didn't change.
The bad hotel restaurant food, that hasn't changed.
Man. So what was the initial reception like?
Well, there was a review in an issue of it's that thing that the English company,
White Dwarf.
White Dwarf,
Yeah,
back before they became entirely a house organ, and gave it a meh review.
Oh, okay. It's not too bad for the first time out.
Right. It was the first third-party supplement ever done. Okay, one person put out some character sheets about the same time. You could argue, but I don't call character sheets supplement, really. They're just character sheets.
Sure.
They're accessories, yeah.
So it's an accessory. But this is the first third-party thing. And this came out right after Greyhawk. So back in those days, you were to play, you had 3-volume set, Greyhawk, and the Manual of Aurania. That was it.
Wow.
That is amazing. So once you have this Manual of Aurania and it becomes fairly popular, do you sit down immediately and start thinking, well, what do we put out next? Did you continue to publish after that?
Yeah, we did. And we wrote up a book called The Librum and had it illustrated. And the problem is that Larry, his typing wasn't all that good. And we didn't have a professional. And Hugh, the editor, didn't like quality of the typing. Illustrations had gone way up, really much better. The typing was still pretty poor. And so Hugh said, we're not going to print out with this typing. And then these fell apart, and it never got published. I have it right here, matter of fact.
Wow.
Man.
That's a little heartbreaking.
Yeah,
I mean, it does go to show, though. I think it's easier for people to look on to the hobby now with the massive volumes of text that are out and available, and the PDFs on demand, and errata, and at their fingertips. That it's hard for people to remember that there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. There's a lot of moving parts, and people have to be working as teams to kind of pull this stuff off.
I'm going to try to find a drawing or something from the library here to show you guys.
Oh, so we can see some of the illustrations, yeah. Yeah,
I
that'd be great.
First time ever shown to first time anyone's ever seen these.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can definitely see that. Yeah, those are actually really well done.
Yeah, that's good quality.
Well, most of this was done by Troy Hughes, now Troy Lockyer Hughes, who's now a pretty well-known professional artist, and done some.
Oh yeah! Nice.
Good work. So. She's pretty well known for her work, and she went on to become successful as opposed to the rest of us.
Well, at least somebody did, right?
Something came out of all of it.
That's more than most of us can manage. Let's see.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh right, yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Types of gene.
Yeah.
And basically, and Amy. She now does class beat, so she's still an artist. So, but she doesn't do drawings anymore.
Man,
so they kind of successful. So,
all right. So, what was the sort of content that they were getting in those first couple things there? Like, obviously, we had the Thief class, and then we got into the Aurania stuff. So, like, what were people getting in that book or that set?
The Manual of Aurania. Let's take a look here at it. It's got a Cleric of Mitra, specialized cleric for specialized cleric, Cleric of Asgard, Cleric of Thor, Cleric of Odin. So all the first-time specialist clerics. It's got the Bjorning class,
so
which I believe the guy who did the Eric really liked that class. Played it. He got a copy. And a race called the Sloth of Rana.
Okay.
So it's a separate race. Samurai.
That's wild. The samurai was that early on.
Sade and a leprechaun, which are races. So we get and a shapeshifter, which is a very interesting class that puts on a skin, turns into that animal.
Like a skin dancer of sorts.
Huh.
Yeah, skin. And then page after page after page of monsters. Is one of my favorite, the four-armed horror.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it'll get the job done.
And so pages after pages of monsters, and then at the end a few treasures.
Mm-hmm.
So mostly monsters. So some character classes and a lot of monsters.
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm sure you needed those at the time, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of this was coming out of a campaign that you guys were playing in, right? And that's a really interesting thing, because we have some friends of the channel that, you know, they do a lot of homebrew. We do a lot of homebrew at our own our tables. And, you know, developing those worlds and, you know, the history and the you know, the NPCs and the monsters and all that lore is really fun. And, you know, if you get at it for a decade or more, you know, suddenly you have just tomes and tomes and tomes of built up history. You know, some of these people are actually on our channel kind of going through and kind of packaging it all together and, you know, putting it out for other people to play with. And it's nice seeing that again.
Good luck to them on that. So we made like $1,000 or so on the manual, and it wasn't bad money back in those days for, you know, guys right out of high school, you know. So
yeah, I mean,
and
it's still pretty decent money nowadays.
rights have been bought. Illusionist Investment Group has bought the rights to the manual and the Librum, and they're going to do a Kickstarter.
Oh, cool.
Soon.
Oh, nice. So we might see this come out for, what would that be, 5e then?
Oh, I think it'll be a whatever system you want to use it for. Be
Okay,
generic.
So
okay, it'll be
rules
generic.
agnostic. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. So yeah, before we were talking on stream, we were talking about kind of like what you're playing these days. You know, because we've had people on here in the past that, you know, they stick with their edition and that's their bread and butter. They find what they like and they just stick with it. And you were saying that you're actually kind of progressing through the different editions and taking kind of more of a holistic approach, we'll say.
Yeah, it's not the edition. It's the DM and the players.
Mm-hmm.
You got a good DM and good players. You can have a great game of Tunnels and Trolls. As a matter of fact, everyone knocks 4th edition, but I had a dungeon master, a good friend of mine, and he got the computer upgrade thing for it. And he's a big computer geek. He works for Google, and he set it all up, and we had great games of 4th edition.
That's awesome.
The edition is not important. It's the people. It's the DM. Edition is clothes. The body is the people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely agree with that
you.
sentiment.
And that is interesting because that is the same argument we get for the people who don't move on to editions. It's me and my people. We know what we're doing. We don't need the new rules. We don't want to relearn it. We're just going to sit here, you know, and we see that a lot, you know. So it's interesting that you've taken that same philosophy but gone the completely other way with it. Like, we're just going to keep moving on and playing with new rules for the same group, and that's all that matters. And it's awesome.
I could stay in the same edition all the time because that's what everyone would play. That'd be great too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not picky.
Now, do you ever go backwards? Do you ever get a day with like, you know what? Let's go back and use the old first, second ed rules just for a couple of days and relive it?
Used to go visit my friends up there in over by Yosemite, and we usually played 2nd edition when we did that. But we haven't done that in a long time. There's a big resurgence now for Dungeon original D&D, the 3-box set.
Yep.
Hawk, Blackmore, and manual. A lot of calls now. Hey, can you reprint the manual? You know, I had to actually block a couple people who were putting free download.
Oh, sure.
Wow. You're getting pirated that many years later, even still.
Somebody, before I sold the rights, I told somebody, I says, hey, if you find a good cause, and get somebody to do it, I'll just let you do it. But, well.
And we got in the chat here, this is a pretty interesting little note that I would have never thought of. Quill Deity is saying they had some friends that played something. The only rule was results were determined by stopping a stopwatch and checking the milliseconds. So that was your die roll. That's clever.
Wow.
When we needed a random number from 1 to 100, we often used the last 2 digit of phone numbers from a phone book.
Oh, man.
Hey, that's interesting.
Whatever was needed at the time. They just didn't have all those specialty dice back then, right? So that's what you had to do.
Man.
There wasn't very many of them. You got that one set of dice, and then TSR ran out. You couldn't get any more polyhedral die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now we live in this world with all these metal dice and specialty dice, and
yeah,
it's all crazy what you can get now.
Dice.
Yeah,
The set they gave me made out of bloodstone.
Ooh.
Nice. Yeah, I was just one of our guys, Tim. He's just had some obsidian dice that I was seeing. That was pretty cool. It was amazing. Let's see.
Did you ever imagine back when you were first starting with the Manual of Aurania, all that the hobby would ever hit this level? Like, did you ever think it would be like this?
Well, it probably wasn't as big as probably crazy like during second edition. When second edition hit, it was all over the place. I mean, everyone played it. We got the new player's handbook at the hobby store. We had 4 cases of it and sold out within days.
Wow.
I think it was even more popular there than it is now.
Huh.
But now it's more far-reaching because of the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
yes.
No, we didn't. I know. Honestly, we thought it was just going to be something that us weird war gamers played when we weren't wargaming, and we never thought it'd be a thing. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who've never played a war game, playing D&D all their life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We talk to them all the time.
Yeah, right. Some who never even played something that. I mean, it technically is wargaming. It definitely counts, but something like Warhammer, right? Like it kind of has a foot in fantasy and a foot in wargaming. That's maybe a more popular thing that people would get into versus the wargaming you guys were doing, where it was more reenactments of actual battles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, there's tabletop gaming. I still do, tabletop board gaming. With friends. That's always a good thing to play. You can play, whether it's a K10 or something like that, or there's hundreds of new games out constantly. Amazon sometimes sends me one to review.
That's cool.
There's just so many of them out there. It's amazing. I wish that without COVID, I would, if I had a group of people, I would love to do that like 2 nights a week, just play board games, and 2 nights a week play D&D. But
yeah, that'd be the life.
That's the dream right there, right? When you can.
All you need is money, time, and no COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, this
and
year.
Players are hard to get hold of.
Well, yeah, and I think, that's something we've kind of discovered as we get older. It's, life takes people and puts them in different places and, locations and, phases of life and that kind of thing. And that does get pretty hard. Now, it's part of the beauty of the internet, though, and these kind of communities are starting to build up, is that you can find people. And, even if your main group kind of goes a different direction, you could find new people and new ways of enjoying the game together. Like, when you sit down to a game, like, what is it about a good game session that makes it good to you? Like, obviously you said the people, but, like, what are people doing that is making it so good?
Well, what I always told people is that gaming is jokes, movie references, snacking, and then a little gaming gets done. It's the same thing with Dungeons & Dragons. A good game of Dungeons & Dragons you snack too much. There's
Yep.
some really bad jokes and puns.
Mhm.
Monty Python references.
Yes.
And somebody obviously talks about one movie they've watched or are going to watch, and some gaming gets done around there. It's just a way of socializing
Mhm.
around a table, and game is secondary to all that socializing. Of course, the snacking it's very important.
And the snacks. You got to have those good snacks.
Yeah, the caustic combination of Doritos and Mountain Dew. Whew.
Your character sheet used to not be a character sheet till you'd spilled Mountain Dew on it at our table. It was a rule. Like, it had to be christened. It was,
Well, in our chat right now, we got the Grouch Couch, and those guys take partying and gaming as a hand-in-hand contact sport, I think. They've got it figured out.
Yeah, they've got all that part down. They have a good time while they play their games, and they're a lot of fun to watch. So what, like I was saying, it's really interesting to see, like, hearing how things got started with the publishing and then moving into something where there's like DM's Guild now, where like everybody's putting this content out there for the new edition and everything else. Like, do you find yourself looking at what other people put out there now and thinking about like what you can do next, or?
Not so much. One guy, one of the independent publishers, knowing that I was the top Amazon reviewer, would send me a review copy of his newest dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
I reviewed it. It was for sale on Amazon, or supplement. I review it for him. But I don't keep really up to do with it. I mean, I have the 5th edition Player's Handbook here, but I don't have any of the various supplements and stuff for it. It's just so much stuff. I do buy some accessories once in a while. The maps, with pre-printed maps with stuff on it. Things like that. But it's just hard to keep up unless you. And since I don't have much game going on right now, I mean, we have a Saturday night game, but there we play all sorts of things, and not very much D&D. We play Champions, World of Darkness, Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu.
Oh, yeah.
And right now I'm doing a Call of Cthulhu Gaslight campaign.
Oh, cool.
I crossed Call of Cthulhu Gaslight with Call of Cthulhu. What am I thinking of? Pulp Hero. I'm putting Pulp Heroes in the Gaslight. I'm doing that.
That's cool.
That's cool, but it's just so much stuff out now. You could just go crazy.
It's true.
One of my friends, he realized he had like $10,000 worth of games he never played.
But he never played? That's not count the ones he had played?
He had $10,000 worth of games he'd never played, and then a bunch he had.
Man.
So, yeah.
Never do that to yourself, by the way. Don't ever total up your gaming hobby price. We did that with Warhammer, Dustin and I, a couple times, and that was a tragic mistake.
We don't like to talk about it. I mean, I still got them all proudly displayed behind me because they have to continue to earn their keep. But that's about.
Yeah, I won't do anything with that company. They have issues.
Yeah.
Oh.
So. Anyway, I don't think you want to go into that one because that'll be, we get all this angry emails and stuff. So anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's a company. It's a little touch and go with some people for sure. Actually, that kind of brings up an interesting kind of question, though. Like, putting out a third-party product that early on, like, what was like that? Almost feels like it crashes headlong into legal battle. Like, how did you avoid that?
Well, that was kind of funny too, because it's questionable whether or not things like the term hit dice or classes can those really be copyrighted or whatever. Well, Terry Gygax did send a cease and desist letter to Dave Hargrave, put out his third party, the Arduin book.
Okay.
And so Dave had to put out this other Arduin books as if they were a separate game system, not a D&D supplement.
Ah.
Okay.
I went to a convention, I don't remember where it was, and I took along an autographed copy of the manual, and I found Gary Gygax. I handed Gary Gygax a copy of it, here you go. It was funny because he looked at it, he looked at me, he apparently already heard about it. He says, I can sue you for this. I said, well, you never gave me credit for the thief class. He thought about it for a second. He said, okay, one good ripoff deserves another. I won't set the log dog on you.
Wow.
So,
Man.
probably
That's
a
amazing.
little bit of copyright issues in the Manual of Aurania, maybe, kind of. Oh, at that time, now there's open source, there isn't any.
Mm-hmm.
But, then, if you steal someone's work and don't give them credit, well, that's a crime too. So,
For sure.
you
Wow.
you don't want to fight that battle anymore.
No,
That was
man.
good. I wanted to get in his game, but he said it was totally full, even for watchers. He walked me over to the artisan's table and said, "Hey, Dave, can you let this guy play?" He handed me a carrot. I said, "I'll play Carrot Cleric." Handed me a character sheet. We played, killed some frog monsters, had a good time. Like 12 players.
12
And
players.
I think from your story, it shows that there's always been a clamoring for more content than what the official publishers were always able to put out. And is it Third Ed probably where they turned that corner with the open license? It was just like everyone just start creating.
Right. That was a brilliant idea, just open license. Up to that point, there was you had to work for them, or you publish it in a thing like Alarms and Excursions, a fanzine.
Yeah.
And, no one wants to go after a fanzine. That's just looks bad. Especially because most of that stuff is just personal accounts of their characters, little stories, little fiction about their character who is a flying elf, something or other. Anyway, but didn't have too much crunch. It was all fluff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and there were some other systems too. One thing we called Dungeons and Beavers, which was the the colleges put out Caltech put out their own version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Just didn't sell it, but had their own version. I played in some of those games. Wow, those were crazy high-powered games. I mean,
Dungeons and Beavers was high-powered?
Well, that's what they didn't like to call it that. They called it just call it their Caltech version.
Okay.
But everyone else says because their thing was a beaver, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we chose Dungeons and Beavers.
Fair enough.
They were really high-powered games. I mean, 3th level characters were like nothing.
Huh.
And so you were talking about how a lot of your early games were definitely dungeon dives. Was that primarily, like you said, the DM versus player dungeon dive? Is that still a mainstay of what you guys do with your games?
I love a good dungeon delve. It's a way of railroading the characters without railroading them.
Okay.
In a dungeon,
Yeah.
that's where they're going. Now they can go anywhere they want in the dungeon,
Mm-hmm.
They can make left turn, right turn, go up, go down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really railroading, but you have a kind of limited thing where they just can't go too far off the rails.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
They can't, let's go to that big giant city over there. Okay. I've got nothing prepared, but I guess you could. And it kind of limits what they do without true railroading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because overland travel, they can just turn left at any corner, and you're into somewhere. Who knows if you know what's there or not? You're winging.
Right. So we used the outdoor survival map.
Mm-hmm.
Avalon Hill game. That was our outdoor map for adventuring around the wilderness to get from one dungeon to another. there wasn't any treasure or anything in outdoors, and also the outdoors, they're random encounters. You can encounter something outside your level, and a dragon can kill y'all.
But at least in the dungeon, you knew what you were going after, right? If it was a dungeon of goblins, you knew there were goblins. It was
right, and if you were, to stay on various levels,
Right.
we can handle monsters up to the, usually first level characters, second level characters, and so forth. So you're not going to be stupid and go down 6 levels and then get all wiped out. TPK.
Oh yeah, we've had some close calls in our days. I think it's only actually almost happened once for us, but yeah, it's interesting.
The only TPK that capped my dungeon was when they insisted upon going 2 levels too deep for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. Well,
so in these games, like everyone has their kind of their preferences for things, and one of those things that people often have difference of opinion on is randomization, like random charts and that kind of stuff. Is that something that appeals to you, or is that something that you tend to go against? Or
once you're out of the dungeon, you have you wandering monster chart. That's just to push them on so they don't startle and go back and forth over the same territory obsessively.
Mm-hmm.
Outdoors, we use the wandering monster chart right there from 3-volume set, and so that a lot of fun stuff there. Of course, they got in the AD&D. We used it from the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Mm-hmm.
right.
So in general,
you didn't use them.
You didn't shy away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we didn't use them in a controlled setting. We used them only like wanted to go outdoors or doing something. So you left the controlled setting into the uncontrolled setting.
It was the spur. You have the carrot and the spur, right? And occasionally you have to have the spur to keep the mule going, right? So
that's one thing I learned early in my D&D games. There's always some guy wants to split the party, go off on his own, and I always say splitting the party is twice the work for the DM and half the fun for the party.
Mm-hmm.
So after a while, I just developed this thing of, Dungeon Master's in charge of encounters, right? Well, forget that. Who sets encounters? Not the players, the Dungeon Master. Mm-hmm. So the main party, you go in this room and you find these monsters. You have this combat. You kill them. You get this treasure. You turn to the solo guy and say, "You encounter nothing." Go back to the guys. Encounter nothing. Oh, I want to go. You encounter nothing. After about 3 times of this, they get the point.
Yep. Yeah, they'll make their way back.
Not running the game. You're running the game. What if you want to go someplace where you had drawn out that there was going to be stuff? You encounter nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very liberating term. You encounter nothing.
We got a redeemed question coming in here from Quail Deity. Wants to know if we all use XP in our current D&D games. Do you guys still stick to XP?
No, we dropped that some time ago. We went to milestone.
Yep.
My current dungeon, when they go down a level, they go up a level.
Okay, so it's if they clear everything, that is kind of when they're gonna scale up going through your dungeon.
That's the milestone. When they go down a level, and then of course the famous the stick comic, all the confusion of our levels comes into play here. Currently haven't seen that comic strips.
Now, do they frequently go down a level and up a level mid-session, or do you always try to save that for between sessions so things get done? There's no break.
They rest. They go down a level. They rest, and they wake up with the new level.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what we kind of evolved into as well. We don't do a lot of dungeon dives in our group, but we do stick with that like story beat or milestone kind of thing. For us, it changes behavior at the table, I think. Like you get less of the like I'm going to go boil an anthill or do something ridiculous just to get experience, and you get more people focusing on like what makes sense. You know, like what should we be doing? Like what's going to be the smartest way to achieve our goals, as opposed to looking at everyone as a loot pinata and an experience bag. You know.
Well, we went through like a phase for a while there where you got the experience for the monster no matter what you did. If it appeared and you encountered it, you got the experience as long as you survived it. Whether that meant you made friends with the dragon, you snuck past it and left it sleeping, or you decided to kill it. It was all worth the same XP. And then we realized that XP at that point was pretty pointless, and we just dropped it all together.
Well, what really hurt is that, when you become grown-ups, some days you just can't get to the game.
Right.
Why are you going to punish the person by him dropping levels? It's just not right, because we're all adults now, and things happen. And the wife has to go shopping, bills have to be paid, whatever. You have to take the kids to school function, whatever, and you can't penalize people for that. Sure, they miss out on the gaming session, maybe some cool loot. They miss out on the fun, so there's a little penalty there, but you don't penalize them also levels. And then we used to do that. Go, well, you're a first level character with a party of 9th level guys. You just die. So what was the point of it?
Yep.
Yeah, because if you're with your system of giving them a level every time they go down a level, well, if someone misses a game, they're down on another level. He's got to go down there with one less level and try to survive, and that's gonna be rough.
The way I do is that they're always in someone's pocket or something. They wake up.
Some magical means.
There's a invention called the safe room, the dungeon where you can go to. The monsters can attack you, and when you miss a game, you obviously just stay asleep in the sleep room, the safe room on the 3rd level, right? For example, and then they go down a level. They find the safe room to go to rest. They all go to sleep, wake up, and there's that guy. Be next to them.
So you built in the safe room as literally a physical location in the dungeon. It's not just some room they cleared out and then they just declared a safe room. Like you've got a room already built in that when they find it, now they have access to a new safe room. Correct.
When they find that room, as a matter of fact, that's always the first thing you look for in every level. Where's the safe room? And they know they can rest overnight safely. No monsters can attack. There's no food or anything. It's just,
Do you design them like a legit panic room? Is it like a legit panic room with secret doors so the monsters just don't know where it is? Like there's supplies in there like a bunker? Is it?
There's stone beers. And they lie down these beers with little like Egyptian style pillow things behind their head. And they wake up refreshed, most of their hit points back, their spells back. They still have to eat, drink, but there you go. Just a way of simplifying all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's nice to have just a simple way of doing that things. Because that is a nuisance. It just comes up all the time. Trying to come up with creative solutions to it, and story beats and stuff that explain it away and side scenes and stuff. Sometimes it's nice just to be like, it just happened. Just deal with it.
Jeff missed a game of mine recently. They just weekended him around for half a session and then dropped him off at a hotel somewhere. It was basically
Yep. Yeah. Helped that my character was already unconscious at the start of that.
I don't want to penalize anyone too much for missing a game. So
right.
The only penalty is you missed out a night's worth of fun.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is the worst thing to miss. The worst thing to miss is a night's worth of fun with your friends.
Right.
That's what everyone's going for.
So, why rub it in?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of things, that seemed like it was kind of initially built in. That almost kind of felt like penalization. I think back to how leveling systems worked back in the day. All the classes had their different curve. Your certain classes, leveled super slow at the start and then sped up really quickly at the end, and vice versa. I always felt like that was a kind of a strange approach.
I always looked at it as incentivizing to do something else. I guess I always looked at it the opposite. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Daniel?
Well, it was important back in the days for the thief class because the thief leveled just about twice as fast. So the class, which kind of was sucky, you know, the way Gygax put it out, I'm just going to straight out. Thief class for the Greyhawk and AD&D, kind of sucky. If you weren't a good thief, you had to play either a halfling or a dwarf or an elf. You couldn't play the bonuses, and you have to have a really high dexterity for those bonuses. Otherwise, you had this. So to make up for that, you would often be a level ahead of the rest of the guys, and maybe 2 levels ahead of the wizard.
Right.
So, yeah, it worked, but I think it's better to make the classes a little bit more even and be done, and then just level everyone up at the same time.
I think later editions have done a better job of that, so it makes more sense now to milestone and level everyone together. I can see, having been someone who played, you know, AD&D and second ed, like I can see where those XP charts maybe where it was a balancing factor, or as I said, an incentive perhaps to.
We went to our friend's house out there by Yosemite. We sometimes have this all day long gaming session. It's mostly role playing, not too much combat. Corey and Lori Cole, you may have heard of them. They're famous computer game designers. And Lori is an actress. She's a role player. The rule system doesn't matter too much to her. So we would have this 8-hour long game with very little combat. And just at the end, everyone take a level. Everyone take a level.
Yeah.
And so we went from that to like, well, hey, wait a minute. Why don't we just have a milestone leveling? You know, you've done so much. You did this. Everyone levels.
Right.
So it just worked out better than experience points. Also, you don't have to worry about killing the monster. You can just talk to it.
Right. Yes.
Like that.
It's a lot less bookkeeping. I was like, let's get the calculator out. Let's go. You know.
Well, yeah, because with some of those experience charts, you get the high levels. You had like millions of XP, and it was you had to calculate everything out, and then sometimes there was optional rules for individual rewards based on like if the fighter killed something alone, it was 100 extra XP, and you're like, I got to get 1,000,000 to get the next level, and I'm worried about 100. Like, I
had a funny story about that. One of the guys went down and there was this big, tough, 2-weapon fighter. And he challenged our player, who was a big, tough 2-weapon fighter, for one-on-one thing. And the guy says, why not? I can't dance. So let's get this one-on-one thing and get the extra experience points. Well, the other guy cheated by having a wizard cast haste on him. So he just really clobbered our PC. PC came out and said, I'll learn to dance.
Nice.
So, as somebody who was there at the beginning of the thief class, I wanted to give a little shout out because I want you to get a little idea of how far your creation has come over time. Our friends at the Grouch Couch have a person playing a thief right now named Reggie, who's a reverse thief. He pickpockets things into people's pockets, but only useless things. So if you want to, from your earliest lock picking and everything with daggers trying to get through doors and open chests, you know how people putting things into people's pockets just as pranks with a thief class. So that's where it's come to now. So you can feel like things like that. That's what's going on out there. So
that's great. I had a thief. It was an NPC turned to a PC called Saradoc Nimbletoes, and he was henchman of a high-level guy. So he kept dying. They kept bringing him back. Dying, bringing him back. About 8 lives later, I figured that Saradoc had kind of lost track of reality. He'd become insane. So he started doing things like picking people's pockets and then putting it in the other person's pocket. And, stuff like that. You start picking worthless things, like toys and stuff, and putting valuable things back in. So kind of like a Kinder before there were Kinders.
Yeah, for sure.
We just got ourselves a raid from the Lollygaggers coming over the party of 10. Thank you, Jeff, and the Lollygaggers. It's great to see you. Looks like they brought with them a Chuck there. I see defenders like Cobalt, a Protista. That's Dan at Gentendo. Yep, we got several friends who came over here with the raid. So welcome, Raiders. We are talking with D. Daniel Wagner here, who is one of the earliest people to publish any third-party content for Dungeons and Dragons, and is also the creator of the Thief class. We know we got some Thief players out there. We know Dan; he likes his thieves.
That's right, Dan.
And just to give him a little plug time here, Defenders of Cobalt has been working for Dungeon Crawl Classics. They put together a Zine that is out called Dan Dies at the End. If you haven't seen it yet, it's out there. It's good stuff. It's for DCC, which is a game that very much probably is in line with a lot of the kind of games you played back in the day. It has that very old school feel to it. So.
I love the old school stuff.
Yeah, we got a taste of that in a little dungeon dive competition thing not too long back.
Yeah, we did a DCC tournament earlier this year, and it was, you could tell we're role players and not dungeon divers. Like, you could tell it's a very different, we have a very different set of skills than what's required for some of that. It was
really terrible dice rolls. we didn't make it too terribly far. We did clear the first level, so that was something, but
it was an achievement.
That second floor, man.
Ooh, it was bad.
That was one of those, like, it felt like Grimtooth a little bit.
It did a little. So when you had these other books like Libra, and you had like Monsters, everything else. Have you seen other parts of your work then that has continued through editions? Like, is there other things that you've put out there that's kept going?
Well, I've seen, obviously, other people have monsters we put out, but then again, you take a monster from mythology, and you can't claim that's yours, even if you're the first person to write it up. Would that be just crazy?
Okay.
Some people, obviously the samurai class, but that's obvious. The other thing is, we also did the very first monk class.
Oh,
however,
nice.
I'm not going to blame Gygax for stealing that one, because that was the days of the Kung Fu. And obviously, you had to have a monk class. I mean,
for sure.
That was,
As things became popular in pulp culture, they got obviously then taken and in some way, shape, or form, some mechanics were added to and put into many, many different game systems out there. So.
Was there as much controversy around mixing genres then as there seems to be now? Like, it seems like there is just like a very strong camp against samurais and monks and stuff in D&D, and I'm not one of those people, but it's just funny to me that people are so like adamant. This can't be in my D&D.
I never worried about it until you want to try to bring guns or ray guns or something in, and that kind of changes the whole thing around, right? Mm-hmm. Once you get into fighting Nazis, fighting Nazis is okay as long as you do it with fireballs, but once you're figuring out the stats for a submachine gun, I think you've crossed too many borders there.
One guy makes sense.
One guy, he was Dale. He loved black powder shooting, and so we gave his wizard a set of black powder six shooters, but weren't all that good anyway. But we gave them to him just because that was what he wanted. So it's not too bad. That's not too bad.
That's the heart of the game, right? Just making sure everyone's having a good time. So sometimes you bend things a little bit here and there. But it does seem like gunslingers from Pathfinder was always one of those sticky points for some people. You said you played some Pathfinder.
I just thought it just kind of bent the genre too much. Mm-hmm. And I immediately, Pathfinder was kind of going into Renaissance there. Mm-hmm. But, you can have a guy, but then you have like this wheel lock pistol or something. Mm-hmm. They have like revolvers and whatever. They don't. They're outside. Early Renaissance period guns, and that kind of genre breaking. I mean, if you're gonna get a D&D game with pirates, guys who really love pirates, so they had black powder single shot pistols, but when you have a pistol that you shoot it and then it takes 3 turns to reload it and you can't do it in the middle of combat,
right?
It more adds flavor than changes the game massively.
Well, right. That's exactly the reference I was going to make when you were talking about that before you got to it yourself. I was going to say, people think like that, a black powder gun in a D&D game seems really out of place until you think of something like Pirates, where they had single shot, pistols. But when you think of pirates and fighting, you still think of the sword play. You still think of, all these other, because they still did mostly that sort of stuff. They just happened to have 1 or 2 pistols strapped to them that they were going to fire one time each, and then they were done. They weren't. They reloaded if they survived. They didn't have another chance to really do it in mid combat. So, that's
that adds a little something to the game, but it doesn't ruin it.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't make the guns too good, and just adds a little bit of flavor and fun. But then again, you're restricting armor too, because you don't want to wear heavy armor anymore. So it kind of balances out, or we hope it balances out anyway.
Yeah, I run a low fantasy game with another systems Y-hander, and it features black powder guns in it along with normal weaponry, and they're good. But reload times and just the cost of them keep them from proliferating to the point that it breaks the game open. Like, they're expensive.
Yeah, I made basically each time you shot it really cost a gold piece. So
yeah, that's about right. That sounds accurate.
I'll slow you down a little bit.
I was joking character creation. Whenever they have everyone rolls a knave, they get the option of a flintlock pistol. I'm like, you take the flintlock pistol, not because you're going to shoot it, because you're going to sell it. You're going to buy everything else you want with it after that. So,
so I'm basically throwing gold pieces at him, and I said, "Yeah, that's basically it." So.
Now, you said you were playing some World of Darkness and some Call of Cthulhu stuff. Did you notice any big transitions in your playstyle as you kind of transitioned those games?
Not really, no. I mean, I've always been. If you give me a choice, I'll always say, "Okay, I'll play the guy who fills in the niche."
Okay.
I don't have any particular favorite class. I mean, I do enjoy playing a good thief, obviously. But my first class I ever played was a cleric, Father Kirkman, very first character I ever played. But I'll play any class. It doesn't matter to me. I'll So you tell me, and it's like a puzzle solving to me. Say, okay, we have 5 other players, and they're playing a barbarian and a druid and a sorcerer and whatever, and I'll say, okay, what you need now is a to fill in the gap to properly balance the party, and that's I enjoy doing that.
Just out of my own curiosity, I would be curious how your group transitioned into the World of Darkness, where it's less party niche oriented and more just pure character.
Well, not entirely. My character in World of Darkness, for example, is he's a fae,
Changeling,
and he's kind of like changeling, yeah. And he thinks he's a real fae, a true fae, but he may be insane about that. He may be wrong, or he may be right. You never know.
Okay, so
but he has
that's interesting.
All the things to act like it. There's a ability that makes you appear like a real fae, stuff like that.
Okay.
So he's the party herbalist. He has the fruits to heal people and stuff. Not the big combat guy, but and he knows the hedge, and no one else does. So yeah, there's roles there too. It's kind of classes. as strict as Dungeons and Dragons, but
Right.
Sure.
classes.
I was curious which one of the games you'd gotten into, because I can definitely see more of a class system like Werewolf. We've just talked about World of Darkness last couple of weeks. Like Werewolf has definite like classes system, to them. So I was wondering if that's the one you got into, or if you went to Changeling or to Vampire. Like I was curious which one you gotten into with that, because World of Darkness is so broad in what you can do with it. So.
No one ever really wanted to do those. I played in one Vampire game. And I played in a live action vampire game where they use the rules but change around.
Mm-hmm.
And they found out that I'm actually related to Vlad Tepes. So I was special see they ran into that they couldn't all the vampire stuff wouldn't work on me, the little. And so I was a guy to give them clues, but they kept coming and go, look into my eyes. I go, what, you got a speck in your eye or something? That was kind of fun. No, I played those. I played, we used to play a lot of Super Game, made by my friends Jay Artlove, now a very successful author, and Amy, the artist I talked to you about. Sam, that's the cat. And that Super Game was copied a little bit to make Champions.
Okay.
If you look at Super Game, and you look at the first edition Champions, you'll definitely see that Super Game took my idea. I came with the idea of everyone used to say abilities are worth so many points, right?
Okay.
I said, no, let's have the abilities worth however many points of damage you want to do with it, or dice of damage. So you want to do 10 dice damage? That's 10 times 5, 50 points. That was my contribution, and Jay took that and made Super Game from that. And then the guys saw that, and they liked it. They've been playing Superhero 44, which was one of the reasons Super Game came out. We played Superhero 44, and they played.
Kitty wants some attention.
We got a Twitch kitten. Oh, there's the cat.
Sam?
Oh,
and immediately our viewership goes up by double.
We found Sam when he's a day-old kitten. We raised him since then.
Wow.
He's now 18 years old.
Wow.
He's 18-year-old cat. And he's cranky and old, but we still love him. And he follows us around everywhere because he doesn't really know he's a cat. So anyway, I'd say Dungeons & Dragons, Champions, Hero Game Systems. Those are my two biggest ones. I played GURPS too. My friend Norris, he loves GURPS, so we played GURPS. And I think that GURPS and Champions are classless, but they're not really.
Sure.
I mean, you got the brick, the guy who does range damage. So it's still classes, still niches.
definitely archetypes.
Archetypes, yeah. Call of Cthulhu is very big. We play Call of Cthulhu. We've sanitized it a bit so people don't constantly go insane, after 5 minutes of playing. So
yeah, that's a real risk in that game.
Play Champions. Now I'm failing to think of the word. The pulp. Champions pulp. It's quite a bit easier to survive. You don't die or go insane quite as fast.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I find, like, for at least our group, the reason why I asked that question initially is, when we were coming through our gaming life, I guess we'll say, we went from D&D, we went into the World of Darkness, and for a lot of us, the World of Darkness seemed to be when we learned that there was role playing as opposed to ROLL playing. you know. So like the narrative side of it really became a focus. And I wasn't, you know, for us, it's hard to kind of see if it's like a chicken and egg kind of thing. Was it because we were maturing as human beings, as a, you know, coming of age kind of thing? Or was it because the game itself kind of brought out a different style? And so that's why I was asking you, was just kind of get your take on it. Did you feel like you had a transition of any type when you started switching systems?
I don't think the system makes the role player.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second game we played a lot of was RuneQuest, where Avalon Hill bought it and ruined it.
Yeah.
That's not there. Avalon Hill bought it and ruined it. The original RuneQuest, Steve Perrin, guys I knew from the SCA. I'm in the SCA.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Wolfstan Darrelson. I'm a court baron and a member of the Order of the Pelican. That doesn't mean anything to you guys, but to your audience, they may go, ooh.
Someone out there will know.
My wife, Leanne, she's a duchess.
Oh,
so
nice.
anyway, that was the first game, and that was more. We kind of get a little bit more into role playing with that game because it was a little bit less. There was no levels, and we did role playing from the beginning. I mean, I think we were blessed. One thing we were blessed by is that we had female gamers from the very start.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think Amy, Troy, Thea, etc. And I think that not that you can't have combat happy female players. I mean, some would just say blah 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 blah. Skip all that. Who do I kill? They occur too, but sometimes the different side brings us a softer, more role playing thing to the table. And we were blessed with them from like first days at Arrow Hobbies. And so role playing became more important from the start.
That's cool.
I mean, it matured. It went along. It didn't. There was no sharp break. You know. But also remember, I told you like that jousting game. You know, I was, the character, and we would talk in that character's voice a little bit and challenge someone to a joust as if we were that character. So role playing came in there too. So we were role playing even before D&D.
Well, I mean, you took the necessary steps. You got rid of XP and went to milestone. You made the game still relatively deadly because you had a very deadly style game. And once you do those two things, people start like looking for other options besides let's go in and kill it, and that usually means role play. So you start to delve into some of those other options real quickly when you set up that scenario. So any game system that does that for you, and the World of Darkness certainly does that for you, and games like Zweihander or some of these other games certainly do it for you. If you set up that scenario, you're probably going to encourage role play whether you mean to or not.
Right, and I think our games, like up there at our friend's house, would be like, okay, we're just all going to role play, and at the end of the night, take a level. That sure encourages role playing too, right?
Right.
So, if you just want to do combat, well, there's nothing to do because not combating, we're role playing and adventuring, puzzle solving, that sort of stuff. But it wasn't just combat. And once you get away from just combat and just, kill, how many experience points, how many bags of gold did I get?
Right.
But sure, in a way, better style, I think. I'm not trying to say that there's anything wrong with the dungeon hack game.
Oh, sure.
Because if you enjoy it, it's right.
Right. Yeah. If you're having fun, you're doing it right, is what we always say.
I mean, I can say I don't like, people play murder hobos. I hate that term too. I could say they're playing it wrong. But even that's kind of a stretch. Because if that's really what they want to do, I guess.
Yeah.
It's okay. But killing random NPCs just because you want to is not it's just doing things wrong. I think it's just encouraging a bad worldview.
It's not that the actions themselves are ever wrong. It's if it deters fun at the table for other people, that's when it gets to be disruptive.
Yeah.
You want to avoid being disruptive. Also, gotta give a little shout out there to the Litching Hour who just raided in with some new viewers.
Welcome, Raiders.
We are talking with Daniel Wagner here, who's one of the earliest third-party publishers for D&D, and also the creator of the Thief class. So we've been talking thieves, third-party publishing, and we've been talking a little bit about what the styles of games they like to play, which kind of games they like to play in, and kind of how they go on encouraging role play, which is what we're kind of talking about here at the moment with our waning few minutes we have left before outros.
And if you guys are here, we do have it turned on. So if you use the channel points, you can ask us a wisdom check question. We'll go ahead and get those questions out there. So if you got any, it's time to get them out there because we're running out of time.
Because I know they're big fans, I already informed D. Daniel of Reggie the Reverse Thief, just so he knows what's going on out there in the world with something he created a long time ago. That we've hit that level.
I love that. I imagine it probably would have come out without me, but it might have taken a decades or years or something like that.
Well, right. Yeah.
It's possibly one of the most popular classes or roles to play in D&D. The thief, the rogue, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. It's just fun.
Oh, for
and
sure.
It used to be necessary. Now it's fun. That's even better, isn't it?
It's really diversified because then you got things like spies that count as thieves. You've got investigators that count as thieves. You got burglar thieves. You got thieves can be. It's a really broad category when you get to looking at it.
Here's a question I've got that I don't know if we'll be able to come up with an answer for this, but do you feel that there is a gap conceptually in the world of classes? Is there something not represented that should be?
What's missing still?
Because that's a tricky one now because there's been so much time to fill them in.
Pathfinder, there were so many classes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's like 40 classes at the end there. In Pathfinder with 40 classes, there's no gaps. I haven't played enough 5th edition. I remember they haven't done that many classes.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't really expanded the classes. What they did expanded the variations on the classes and expanded the races. Now there's 20 races now for 5th edition or something like that.
There's a lot of those.
And more coming down the pipe, probably.
I would say, there's enough variation in the classes to fill nearly any gap. The thing I wrote up, and I've just submitted this, it'll be there and hopefully part of the Kickstarter, is cleric who is a healer and a spellcaster and isn't a fighter. Doesn't wear armor, doesn't people the mates. That you can do that in Pathfinder, but there's
with the Oracle.
Not any good. The Oracle, but even the Oracle carries a weapon, wears armor.
You went like a priest.
The guy who wanders around in white robes, blesses people, heals them. We call that the White Friar.
Yeah.
And it carries a quarterstaff to defend himself with. So when we did the White Friar class, that was in the Librum. Things like animals wouldn't attack a White Friar. They just come up and go, hey, that's a White Friar. Not attacking him. He doesn't kill us. And even most intelligent monsters would go, well, I could probably get a healing spell from after the battle. Now, let's not kill him. Let's kill him last or whatever. So that concept just has not been done well in Dungeons & Dragons.
You may be interested to know. Sorry. You may be interested to know that in the 2nd edition Pathfinder, they've actually made one of the versions of a sorcerer a angelic one, and it does healing. So it's a cloth healer.
Well, see?
It's in sorcerer where you wouldn't expect it.
Yeah, not at all where I would have thought, but
they had a sorcerer who was sorcerer of the celestial sorcerer. He had a little bit of healing in regular Pathfinder, and that was kind of a cool class. But yeah, they gave up on. So the guy who doesn't wear armor and doesn't carry weapons, but just heals and stuff. They did that third edition with the healer class. But that was clearly designed as for let someone's girlfriend play that class. I hate to be sexist here, but they just designed that obviously because we had not a gamer girl, but just someone who was just someone's because their boyfriend played. And they wrote up this class because they got a unicorn as a mount and all that sort of stuff. And didn't do anything but heal. It was a very weak class, and everyone hated it.
Well,
So
we call video gaming a backpack healer, essentially. For the way it was kind of presented was not maybe quite on par with what you want it to be. We do have a couple questions coming in here from the chat. We got Joker here says, if you could recommend a game or book that you consider a must for this generation's DMs, what would you recommend? It's a great question, by the way.
Yeah, it is a good one. Yeah.
Got a great one. Let me go. Let me go get it. I'll be right back.
Go right ahead.
He's not only going to tell you what it is, he's going to go show it to you, Joker. So just hang on here a second. He'll be back. Who knows how many bookshelves of books he's got to rustle through to find this? Well,
yeah. Hopefully he's not
see.
Counting up the amount of money those books cost on those shelves.
And
oh man!
For those of you who are joining in from the raids that we got here late, if you go back earlier into this VOD later, you'll be able to see a copy of the Manual of Aurania, which is the first bit of third-party published content for D&D, and it is amazing to see that thing in person. And then it might get a Kickstarter. You might get to see it come back again.
Yeah, that's interesting to see kind of a remake of some of this content.
Well, everything else in the world's getting remade. Why not third-party content, right? Like,
hey, I'm going to recommend something that hardly anyone else has done. So this is an unusual recommendation, right?
All right.
Not on the shelf. And here's the book.
What does it say there?
Trey Prescott.
A Portrait for Cregan?
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. A very popular series of sword and sandal books with a Conan-like hero written by Alan Burt Akers. And this is book 21. So they have like 30 books in it.
Wow.
And this one, we go down into a dungeon. And this is a beautiful, beautiful dungeon full of treasure and maps and stuff. And it's just, wow. I mean, I've taken some of my ideas for my dungeons out of that book. So there you go. There's something that no one else would ever recommend.
That's awesome. And if you like that one, you can backlog 17 previous books and read the story up to that dungeon.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
The funniest thing that happened in a book, I think it's book 2 or 3, and the story here is this guy is getting these tapes, right? And then he's transcribing them for Ray Prescott. Alan Burkhager is simply the nemesis. And so at one time, our hero, Dre Prescott, is tied up and his weapons are taken away and he's knocked out and they're about to throw him into a volcano. And it says tape ends. The next one, tape missing. And the next one starts, once out of the volcano.
I always like those.
I laughed hysterically at that. That was great. Once out of the volcano, and I've used that sometimes. So, I have a sense of humor. It is, of course, hack writing, but it's hack writing at its best. So,
perfect. Our second question we got here was from the Litching Hour.
The Litching Hour.
And he says, thief or rogue, is there a slight shade of difference?
I consider the two the same thing, but they renamed it. I don't think it was a bad renaming because thief isn't there to really to steal. Thief is actually a dungeon enabler. He's there to scout, pick locks, disarm traps. He's not there to pick pockets or burgle merchants. That's not his job.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a dungeon trap mover, scout person thing. Thief is a simpler name. And so calling him a rogue is good, but then again, that rogue name makes you more of Kugel the Clever or people who aren't good at doing all that sort of stuff and are more con men than boxmen.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I like the concept. I'm glad they did it. Get away from I'm a thief, thereby I have to steal. Especially stealing from the party. I've always thought is a very bad.
I agree.
Yeah, I kind of feel like when they recoined it rogue, like I said, what it really did was it just broadened the brushstroke for the class, and now so many other things that you didn't think of as thief suddenly fit under rogue. And when you're talking like with 3.0 with prestige classes and everything else that was added in with that system, it really opened up what your if you say thief, what your thief could be.
That is one thing I do like about 5th edition is 5th edition does have a one of the two flavors of thief, one with a little bit of magic. You can cast some spells. So that does bring into the Mouser and Kugel the Clever type rogue.
Absolutely.
So that was very nice. I like that in 5th edition. That was a good thing. And of course now, and the 5th thief is a great class in 5th edition. And he was one of the weaker classes in 3.5 in Pathfinder. Still, the most popular classes, but one of the weaker classes.
Well, if you thought it was a downgrade going from automatically succeeding to rolling a percentile chart to see if you succeed, it was an even bigger downgrade going from percentile chart to succeed to now everyone can try it. You just happen to be a little better at it than everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's true that only thieves could detect or disarm magical traps. But I don't mind that. I think in second edition, Rangers could find woodland traps like a snare or a trap. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Once you got everyone picking locks and everyone disarming traps, you have neutered the thief class. Can every class cast fireball? No. Oh, can every class use a two-handed sword? No. So why can every class do what a thief can do?
They didn't leave anything for them almost. Yeah. There was almost nothing left for them at that point.
And then 3.5 in Pathfinder, and even 5th edition, they've neutered the traps. All a trap does is so many dice damage, and so you send the barbarian to get up there, he takes damage, the cleric heals them, you move on with life.
Well, magic has proliferated a lot to the point that that's more of an option than it was with, even if you wanted a barbarian to soak up second ed traps, like you didn't have enough heal spells to keep him going for very long. You'd be resting all the time. So.
Yeah, it's a different world. There's a lot more magic solves everything, I think. But yeah, I do like the idea of a little bit of niche protection in there. So I'll have to see if we can toy around with that a little bit more. Now we are with our last couple of minutes here, so we like to use some of this time to make sure our audience knows where they can find anything you're working on currently. If you have any social media that you'd like people to be aware of, or any of that sort of thing.
Well, someday, I don't know when, the Illusionist Expression Group is going to come out with a big old Kickstarter with the Manual of Aurania and maybe my version of the original, like redone original Thief class. Of course, I lost that paperwork, and that will be great. When that comes out, I'd like everyone to get to that Kickstarter and get that, and that'd be very cool because it's for every edition, and you'll get some cool monsters and character classes that never existed. And you take a look at some of our character classes that we did right here in the Manual of Aurania. We still haven't done them really. I mean, there's the Sadie, the shapeshifter in the way it's done here. Those have never been duplicated. So in samurai, sure, everyone's got a samurai class, and most of them aren't very good, but or too powerful. Either not very good or too powerful. It's it's never in between. Never get like just right.
Yeah, I blame the anime culture. See, too many animes just go over the top on the power level. Then they try to incorporate that into a lower fantasy D&D game, and it just doesn't always mesh.
That could be it. Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. So for those of you guys who missed earlier, we were talking about the Manual of Aurania, and there's a lot of content in there, including the different classes he was just describing, a bunch of monsters, and some just really interesting stuff in here if you kind of dig back into the history of it. So when was this? It was, looks like, according to this, 74. Wow. That is...
Yep.
Man, that is unbelievable. Wow. So, yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So you go check it out. There's some really interesting history in there. And if that Kickstarter does get out there, go check it out. Support it.
I'd love for it to come out. It's supposed to come out in the middle of this year. I think we're already in the middle of this year, but
yep.
I don't know what's
it's a little rough launching a Kickstarter now.
Well, that does well. They're going to do the Librum. And so you'll see stuff from OD&D that has never seen print. I think it'll be fun.
Awesome.
And I mean,
that'll be super cool. And I think you're getting some writer's credit on this thing when it really comes back out, correct?
Yeah. I hope so.
You, lesser extent, Larry, getting in some of the a little bit of money from it, and a lot of writer's credit. So it'll be fun. And we're not doing it for the money; we're doing it for the fun more than anything else.
Well, it's super cool. So we look forward to seeing that Kickstarter get going. We'll definitely check it out if we see it pop up there, and we'll
push it up. We'll see if we can get some people heading that way.
People stop bugging me for copies of the Manual of Aurania.
Yeah, it'll be nice. So if you're new to our channel, if you look down below in the panels, you'll see a list of the sorts of stuff we like to do. So we do this talk show, the Wisdom Check, on Monday nights. We do a music show on Tuesday called Bardic Knowledge. We have an exercise show that sometimes is also on that day. Wednesdays, we had been doing a Pathfinder 2e campaign that I was running, and we're taking a bit of a break from that, so we'll let you know when that kind of kicks back up. Thursdays are video game nights, so we get in here, we play a bunch of just random things as a group, and usually a bunch of stupid voices that we like to get into, and crowd participation and stuff. See, Fridays, I was over at another channel, Air Lasers, playing Monster of the Week, but that has finished, so there's nothing on Friday that I'm aware of. Saturdays every other Saturday is our 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game called the Everstorm, and we just had a session for that, so it'll be a little bit before our next one. And then Sundays is Dustin's game, Zweihander, that I play in, and he is on every other Sunday as well. So do you have anything to say about that, Dustin? Or?
Well, yeah, first off, if you're watching my Zweihander game here in Huttenberg, thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying it. If you are enjoying it, on Wednesday night, 10 p.m., I'm going to be doing some GM prep for both my on and off stream Zweihander games that I'm currently running. So tune in here, T2KB, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. And you can help me create a few things or at least hang out with me while I create a few things that I'm going to need for this Sunday's game. This Sunday, 5 p.m., Horror in Huttenberg continues with Chapter 6, The First Barnstormer. We got Alex from Untold Stories Projects. He'll be back this week with Asher, who is a dragoon who's about to become Huttenberg's first Barnstormer.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll get to see all that go down and find out what they're going to do with this cult, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, we may end up
a lot of fun.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's a good game. And I think that's our whole lineup. So I just put down the links in there for you guys. Go check out the Discord. If you're not part of that already, you can join in and be part of the community. Put our YouTube link in there as well. So that's going to get you to a lot of our back catalog. So if you want to see some more episodes of this, you want to see Everstorm, Bardic Knowledge, our music show, if you want to see DM to Art, which is our art show that I forgot to mention.
I was going to just bring that up if you caught a break there. That DM to Art is not canceled, but it's on just a bit of a hiatus. School's back in session. Levi's an art teacher. Mm-hmm. So he's got to get settled into the new COVID requirements for teaching this year, which is apparently a lot at the district he's in. So he has not been able to do DM to Art for a week or so, but we're hoping things will settle a bit for him and he'll be able to get a few episodes in the near future. So.
Oh, yeah. So I think that finally gets everything that we have to say, except for one last thing, and that is go show some support to the artist, David Lee Pancake. He is doing all of his art these days in the online world. So if you want to go help him out, go check out his Patreon, his web store, go find him on Twitch, go to his YouTube. And you can see a lot of the awesome sculptures and amazing things he's putting out. So
he's sculpting all of our D&D characters right now in like 1 foot tall sculpt, like professional models. Like I don't deserve such things, but it's going to happen. My character's going to get done soon, and I'm not going to know what to do with myself. Like, this is great. I do not deserve this sort of stuff.
Then he dies.
That is actually what happened to mine. He finished mine, and then my character died the next session.
That's exactly right. So, and our friend Clint here, at TT2KB, just got his in the mail delivered to him. So, Kodo's next. Just Kodo's next. So,
I've had
that's brutal, man.
that happen.
So, audience, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to go and raid somebody else since we've been so lucky to have been raided.
That's right.
Kind of looking at our list here, I'm seeing Scabby Rooster's going, Quests and Chaos is doing some Dungeons and Dragons. We got some art shows that are a possibility.
Let's hit Scabby Rooster. We haven't rated them in a while. Scabby Rooster it is. So here we go. Hang out, everybody. We're going to go see Scabby Rooster. Tell him TT2KB sent you. Thank you again, Daniel, for being with us here tonight.
Much appreciated.
Have fun and vote.
Absolutely.
And vote. Absolutely.
True
Take care,
words.
all.
Thank you.